Hi, I'm Cheri Guntzviller. I'll be presenting today on our SolidWorks Electrical feature of the valves and cylinders and sensors. Oh my. But basically, it's going to be a matter of talking about how we can create mechanical schematics with the SolidWorks Electrical software. I'm going to go ahead and just get right into it because literally there's a lot to cover here. So these valves that we are discussing, you can use a lot of manifolds, especially if you are sending out a lot of air for tubing, for cylinders, of vacuum cups, in my life, it was washers where we had fluids that we were spraying. So you had pneumatic as well as hydraulic lines. All of that type of stuff is where we will be discussing today. So let's talk about the fact that we will be discussing some of the symbols, how that connectivity works. Then we'll be discussing tubing, PLCs, reports, and we'll see if we can get through all of this. It might end up going into a second session, which is kind of what I'm planning. Hint, hint. So let's look at the symbols. Now, I've heard this many times that I've got hydraulics, I've got pneumatics, but most people ask for P&ID. Now, truly, what's the difference between these? And me as an electrical engineer, I had no clue. I've worked with prints before and, told here's a hydraulic print, here's a pneumatic print. And P&ID to me was a little bit foreign, but really, it turns out that these are all schematic style drawings. There are differences though. So let's look at these differences. The hydraulics and pneumatics, those schematic drawings are very detailed. They show pressures, orifices, settings, auxiliary parts, pipes and tube sizes, and a whole lot more. They're very detailed. Where a P&ID is going to be a schematic drawing that's not as detailed. It's more of a high level type connectivity or flow diagram. And it's literally more of a diagram than anything else. It uses very boxy symbols where the hydraulics and pneumatics may show a valve that has all of the flow arrows. So, another big thing to notice is that the hydraulics and schematic prints are governed by the ANSI Y32.10 and the ISO 1219, where the P&ID is governed by the ANSI ISA 5.1 of 2009 and the ISO 14617. To show you what these look like, though, here is more of a hydraulic or pneumatic print that I have from my previous life. And this type of information is a lot more detailed as far as how things are connected. Where a P&ID, lots of boxy symbols, not a whole lot of detail, but it's calling out parts. It's showing out where things are possibly connected or orientated on a system or a machine. The second thing to notice is inside the SolidWorks software, there are two classifications. Those two classifications are the pneumatic hydraulic and the process and instrumentation. So that is truly the reason that we have the two different classifications is so that we can have the two different sets of libraries of symbols. Well, what does that mean to you? Well, we're going to look at the software here right quick, and I will go into this electrical content portal. For those of you that are used to SolidWorks, you may even be using SolidWorks as your tool for creating those mechanical prints. And I tell you, that might be a little bit cumbersome for things like your CAD drawings. Well, what about the fact that you might be using some type of other CAD tool? You might be using AutoCAD, you might be using DraftSite, you might be using another software. If you have pre-existing DWGs, you can simply use a file and open, and you will be able to just select a DWG or DXF and open it within the SOLIDWORKS electrical software. So here I have a print. We have the draw and modify commands here that are all of your CAD style tools to be able to see everything that you are truly wanting. These tools will allow you to look at any part of the drawing and make changes. You simply just make edits. You want to change text, you want to change anything here, you can simply do so. So if I want to change that to maybe say mechanical, and let's just mechanical motor, even though that's not truly a thing. But the point is that you can actually edit any of your existing drawings within the SOLIDWORKS electrical software if they are DWGs or DXFs. So, that being the case, that's wonderful. That's a way to do it. But what if you want to bring in those drawings and make them part of your project? Well, you can do that as well. We have an import tool here. That import tool allows us to import DWG files. You will be able to take an existing electrical project, and maybe you're going to do something like this. I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder and just put those drawings into my folder. So let's just call this mechanical and make a folder here. And then what I'm going to do is I am going to import some drawings, and I have some prints already set up so that I can select a folder where the files are going. And simply what's going to happen is that the software will then evaluate those drawings to be able to then bring them into the project as if they are schematic prints already. So you can actually make projects from your existing drawings and put them all in one place. And then those drawings are truly live in this project. You can make those changes or those red lines that you need to, but now they're all in one place and you don't have to open up 10 different pages in order to do so. They will all be in the one project, which just makes it very easy and organized. Of course, while it's doing that, it does take a moment to actually get this started because it is looking at the fact of the information that is being provided. And there's a lot of different um, pieces or entities on that drawing. So if I were to look at one of these, each one of these has all kinds of information that it is bringing in. You can simply tell them what they are going to be, if they're going to be schematic sheets based off of um, the different icons. Right now, they are assigned as schematics. When I go ahead, notice it does tell me there's over 200 lines with some of these. It will then go ahead and look at the mapping. It will then also try and convert lines into entities, and it will make those drawings for you in the electrical project. Once it's in the electrical project, it then wants to go ahead and assign a title block. Well, as we know, some of those CAD type drawings might be a little bit larger. than the scale that is being used in the electrical project. So you might want to do some scaling afterwards to bring them down to the correct size. And I'll show you that here in just 1 second. So here's my new drawings. These drawings, I'm going to go ahead and move them into that mechanical folder just by highlight and pull, drag and drop. They are now in that folder. If I open up sheet number 6, looking at sheet number 6, here we have that same sheet. If you look down here in the corner, you can see that I have my original title block. So this is the size that the project is currently. You can do one of two things. You can simply highlight the drawings and get rid of that title block just by simply highlight and right click and say title block and remove. Or the second thing is you could just as easily take the existing drawing and scale it down so that it matches the size that you are truly wanting. You can also make your own symbols straight from doing this or the earlier option of the file and open. In the software, we have a library. That symbols management is our library. Now, there is content within this window for P&ID as well as hydraulic and pneumatic. So under the classifications, you will see those two classifications that I was pointing out. Here's the one and here's the other. And you can start seeing some of those differences right away in the types of symbols. What if you want more symbols, though? If you want more symbols, you can use the electrical content portal. Now, your electrical content portal is normally noticed over here on your right-hand side. If it is not there, simply come to your view, and there is an icon with a blue world marble and an electrical bolt through it, or a lightning bolt through it. Clicking on this with the blue background here on that icon will make this tab active. So you can turn it off just by hitting the X. And in order to get it back, you would just simply go to that View tab. You can then log in to the 3D Experience platform. Now, this is one way to access it. I find that this tab is a little bit too small for being able to see everything that I am looking for. So I go directly to the website. And under this website, and I'll just bring that right on screen here. This is where it is literally going, is to this website. And I'll show you the link again after I show you how to get the file. Simply coming to this area and logging in. You do have to create your own account. So please make sure to do your own account. You are going to come to the catalogs. Now, these catalogs, I'm going to go right back to the full catalogs here just so that you can see everything. So notice that there is commonly requested libraries. There is also a pneumatic and hydraulic library. So if you look right here, you can see there are 939 symbols right here. If you click on this library, it will take you to all of these. Well, I don't need each of these symbols. I want just one package. So over here on the left, I can come to the electrical package. And now I have one file to download. Simply hitting the download button here, it will then bring up a download, which I can then unarchive. So let's look at that. What do I need to do? Let's close this sheet just so that I don't have too much on the screen going on to make it a little bit easier to see. I'm going to come right back into my library and into the symbols management. And now I am going to simply say unarchive. Now, when I unarchive, and I'm just going to go straight to my downloads, because of course it's in my downloads. There it is right there. It is a TEW zip file. Please do not unzip it outside of the software. Use the software to bring it in. You'll just simply go through these buttons to say finish. For me, of course, it showed 0, 0, and 0 because I've already processed this, but for your software, it will put in all of those. And then you will have in the added column, you will see the 939 symbols that it has added to your library. So now you've got that capability of being able to get all of that information at one time without having to create them. So here's the website again. It's the electrical content portal.3ds.com. Again, make sure to make your own account in order to be able to get those files. Of course, that means you need the software. So if you're evaluating whether you want the software or not, that would be something that you are going to need in order to continue. So just keep that in mind. All right, so let's talk about the circuitry now. All right, we've got these symbols, so what do we do with them? Well, I'm going to close my existing project here because I don't want to start with something already. I want to start from scratch. So I've got another project started here, and I will just go ahead and open that project. And the first thing I want to do is I'm going to make, again, those two folders, one for mechanical and maybe one for electrical. So we'll say that this one is for mechanical. We'll grab another one and make it electrical, just so that way I can organize my project very nice and easy. You might call it pneumatic, you might call it hydraulic, so you can have all these different pieces and parts, and you can have different people working on those pages all at the same time in this project. So that's the part that's even more convenient, is that truly everyone can be working in the same area. Now, I am going to go ahead and create a schematic here. And of course, let's look at something as simple as a valve. So now if I go to get a valve, let's just go to the other symbols here, and I am simply going to type in a description of a valve and say any class here. So, all right, let's just say we're using a two-position spring return valve. So we'll say here we have a valve, and I will select that one to place on our screen. All right, so that valve is coming up with a number, and I'm just going to call this SV, so solenoid valve, because I want to take this a little bit further. So when I make that adjustment, it does adjust this. I have a numbering scheme for this project so that it is using a sheet number row number. So notice that I place this on 605 here is where this is being placed from this pink dot. That is where it's coming up with this number. You can set up a formula for anything here. So you can have your numbering being consecutive numbering, or you can have them be this more complex numbering, which makes it, of course, a whole lot easier when you're debugging a system if you can find it on the prints very quickly. So this, of course, would be more of your hydraulic, and I'm just going to put some text here so that way I can say that this is going to be more of my hydraulic or my pneumatic type symbol. All right, so what if I want something a little bit different? Maybe I want that P&ID. Well, P&ID, of course, is more of a bow tie. So if I go back into my schematic and I go back into those symbols, I will also find those bow tie symbols here. And it might not be under this pneumatic hydraulic. It is probably going to be under the P&ID being process and instrumentation. And here is a three-way valve. Let's see here. Do we have some two-way valves? There's a safety valve. This will work. So this valve is going to be the same valve number. I'm just representing it in a different format. So I'm simply going to tell it on my right-hand side that it is this valve here that I am associating. It's just a different representation of that same device. Now this one, I'm just going to copy this here and place it down here, but make a change. So this over here, I'm just going to say that this is my P and ID. All right, so there's that type. Well, now, of course, us electrical people, what do we like to do? We like to do solenoids, right? To control everything. So the solenoid then would be something slightly different. And if I go into any class here and look for a solenoid, I'll just pick a solenoid right here and place that. So, well, this is a little bit smaller, different scaling, but it is still part of that same solenoid valve that I am placing because I might be buying this all as one device, where it's got the electric as well as the hydraulic. This device, if I were to look at it, it is now already captured. I'm going to look on my left-hand side here. It is already captured in 3 different ways. You can see where it is landing, page 605, 609, 611. This device has lots of properties. You can come in here and let's look at the component itself. That component becomes the connections that we are looking for. So notice here, I now have a miscellaneous, which is being represented. Oh, I'm going to get rid of that blue because that's a little bit hard to see. I have a preview of what it is, but literally I have a miscellaneous, I have the hydraulic and pneumatic, and I have a relay coil, which actually that would be more in line with the actual solenoid valve. Okay. That being the case, now all of a sudden I may have the main air going in. I may also have the air that is being controlled by the valve that's going to a cylinder of some nature. Let's look at how these then play together. Well, what do I mean by play together? Well, in order to make them work, we now need to talk about tubing. How does all this tubing work in the electrical software? Because of course that's a critical part at this point. Well, to make that work, we need to talk a little bit about the fact of wire styles. Now you can see over here on the left hand in the upper corner here, I have draw multiple and I have draw single. For any type of mechanical print, you're going to be using this draw single wire. Well, it's not a wire. It's a tube. Well, a tube and a wire act the same in the software. What do I mean? Well, I'm going to go to my electrical project here and I'm going to go to the configurations where I've got all of the wires set up, which is also the tubes. You'll notice here in your software, when it is installed, you will receive a template. That template is a generic template, but there are already pipes and tubes that are put into this wire style. This wire style is, again, it's a representation of how you are putting things on your schematic sheets. So, that being the case here, with a 2 position, it's either going to be on and it's going to possibly extend a cylinder, and then the cylinder might have a muffler at the end. You can do 3 position. You can do all kinds of things with this. So please do, just because I'm showing some of this does not mean these are the limitations. This is just the beginning. I want to show you some of the basics right now. And then I want to move further into some of the more intricate or complex ways that you can use the software. there. So again, we might not be covering everything all at one time here, but I will try and get through enough that you could get started if you are wanting to. But you can see here that I have a hydraulic section and I also have a pneumatic section. You can make your own just by simply hitting add. Make sure you highlight the proper group for where you want to put it, but simply adding add to the group name will add a new pipe. So notice here's a new pipe or a new tube that is right here. And I'm going to go to the properties. I can call this, maybe this is a quarter inch tube. I can add a specific color. The conductor, you can go ahead and even tell it that it is a pneumatic line. I can go ahead and say that the line color that I'm going to draw might be this turquoise or whatever color. It is not what it's going to represent in the real world or in 3D. It is strictly in my schematic format for you as a user. You can print those as black and white for that matter. So it's going to be a continuous line. I can also play around with the line width if I want it to be thicker or thinner to show on the schematic. And then, of course, we have the numbering, which right now it is set up for just sequential numbering. You can always reach out to us and we can help you through a mentoring session to show any type of information that you are wanting to see in your schematic. So we can help with those if that's the case. This cabling section right here is for 3D. And I always suggest that even if you're not going to 3D just yet, that you put this information in so that way that information is available. And you don't have to do cleanup later. Now, I can even type in the fact that this is a 0.25 and I can say inch. If it will automatically, if I were to put in something like, let's say a 6 millimeter, it will convert it to inches for me automatically. So I don't have to think about that. It doesn't have a section or gauge. It's not a standard. The color might be clear. It might be white. It might be whatever color you're going to be using in your 3D. So it might be an ivory, the clear ones, it's kind of hard to show. But you have a bend radius factor or you have a bend radius. The bend radius factor, if I say something like 6, it's going to take this diameter and make that bend radius for me. I don't have to sit here and figure out the calculation. And then, of course, I can simply add in a description. This will play a part just in the report itself. So now that I have that information, I can use that in the schematic. I'm going to go to a different page here just so that way I can have something nice and clean. Let's go ahead and make a new schematic. And I'm going to go ahead and draw in, and I can even do something as simple as this. Maybe I don't want to look at that library. Maybe I'm going to just use this symbol. I can do things like cutting it from here. All right, we're going to go page 7. Right click and simply paste it. It's there. Notice it automatically picked up a new number. Well, what we're going to do is we are going to add a manufacturer now to that device. Let's go ahead and add a manufacturer. We will go with this one here. All right, and say select. Now, I'm noticing some coloring going on here. This coloring is showing me that there is a symbol here on page 7 that needs to be applied. Well, my other one provided this hydraulic and pneumatic. I'm going to go ahead and just drag this to apply it to make it green. You'll learn about that if you go into the schematic software training class. whether you go into the online self-paced or if you are doing the online instructor-led. So now that I have this part, I am going to go ahead and start drawing a pipe or a tube. Now, this is, of course, then controlling something along the lines of a cylinder, right? So you're going to simply come to your schematic, say, draw a single wire. Let's select that wire or that tube from the pneumatics that we made, which is this 1/4 inch tube. You will simply just drag it and then start drawing. Now, of course, at this point, you'll notice I'm off my grid, but literally I am not because I have my grid set for so tiny, especially when I'm doing multiple drawings. Now, from here, this tube is already made, and now I can start adding additional information to it. If we look at that information that we are going to add, so maybe I'm going to be adding that regulator. Maybe I'm going to be adding uh, a filter. So with my hydraulic symbols here, let's go ahead and grab something else. So let's just go ahead and number that wire again. All right, we now have that. Now, the reason I am showing you that property is because here, even though I have the signal, I also have additional information. And that additional information might be something like the fact that I might want to put in that it is 10 inches long. Maybe I'm not looking at the fact that it is mechanically in SOLIDWORKS yet. So by doing it this way, this information then can make it into a report of my electrical as a wire style. And not only this, it gives me a quantity. If I wanted to go ahead and add, let's see here, let me get into the list of wires. There is a length in millimeters. Notice it doesn't have a section, but it is wire mark number 1 or tube mark 1. You can change all these headers to match what you are looking for in mechanical, but we'll discuss all that a little bit further and a little bit later. So we're looking at some of this connectivity. That connectivity then, of course, we will get into why we would want a PLC. And I believe that we are going to handle in another webinar because I want to show you how we can adjust some of those reports and we can get into the PLCs, but we can build some bigger schematics. So we will look further. We looked at some of the symbols. We looked at some of the circuitry, some of the tubing. We'll get into the PLCs and reports. I'll build a bigger circuit in when we do the second part. But so we'll be doing a deeper dive and then we will move this into the 3D and be able to route those tubings as well as using that PLC. I thank you so much for joining us. If you want to see more, please go ahead and join us either through newsletters, through our training, through our YouTube channel. Thank you very much and have a great day.